Is Chris Eubank Sr. ruining his son's career? A lot of people right now seem to believe he is, especially in the wake of this Triple G deal falling through, and some of the details of why it fell through have been coming out. At least one side of the story has been coming out through Eddie Hearn. And people are saying, wow, Eubank Sr. is greedy. He just messed up a multi-million-pound deal for his son because of his stupidity and greed and arrogance. Even Tony Bellew actually came out in an IFL TV interview yesterday and said that Eubank Sr. is ruining his son's life. Never mind his career. This is what Bellew said. He said he's ruining his life. To me, I find this interesting because all these people who are saying that Eubank Sr. is, ruining his son's career off the back of this Triple G deal falling through, many of them are the same people who were saying that Eubank Jr. shouldn't be fighting Triple G anyway, that it was too early for Triple G, that he should be fighting Danny Jacobs or rematching Billy Joe before he goes in with Triple G, that putting him in against Triple G was suicide. So how are you going to say that it's a silly fight to make it suicide and it's terrible? And then as soon as the negotiations fall through, you're like, oh, he's ruining his son's career, Eubank Sr. Well, you didn't want him to fight Triple G in the first place. So that's a big contradiction there. Don't get it twisted. I've got misgivings about the way Eubank Sr. is handling his son's career as well. I definitely do. However, hindsight is 20/20, and it won't be until a few years down the line where we will be able to look back and see whether or not Eubank Sr. actually did ruin his son's career. Maybe he's smarter than we think he is. Maybe it will all work out for him for the best in the end. For example, many people thought it was a mistake for him to not fight Danny Jacobs after beating Spike O'Sullivan and to instead go and fight Nick Blackwell for the British middleweight title. Now, obviously, it's unfortunate what happened to Mr. Blackwell. Thankfully, he's recovered. But for that stage in Eubank Jr.'s career, I think it turned out to be the best move for him. And I said that pre-fight, even though a lot of people were saying it was a silly fight. Why is he going back down to domestic level, including Frank Warren? He was very critical of that move. I thought from a career development point of view for Eubank as a fighter, forget about the financial aspect of it, as a fighter in terms of developing his skill, I thought it was the perfect fight for him at that time. And I think he really grew in confidence in that Nick Blackwell fight. He was under pressure in that fight. It was a big domestic clash. It was a grudge match. The Furies were there. They wanted Eubank to lose. They were egging on Blackwell. Saunders was there. I think mentally that really galvanized the self-belief that Eubank Jr. has. And it took his confidence to a new level. So I think in hindsight, well, even at the time I said it was good, but I think most people who were critical of the fight at the time, in hindsight, can look back and say, actually, it was a good fight for Eubank Jr. for his development as a fighter. And maybe we'll look back on this Golovkin fight, which didn't take place, and say, you know what? That was a blessing in disguise, actually. Maybe they got a whole heap of publicity from that. Didn't actually have to go through with the fight. Maybe Golovkin in his next couple fights starts aging a little bit. Eubank Jr. improves, but yet his profile is still high from this Golovkin fight that didn't happen. And maybe he fights Golovkin a year, 18 months down the line and beats him. And then you'll look back and say, wow, it's a good thing that he fought him now and not 18 months earlier when he was originally scheduled to fight him, because he might not have won. And obviously he won't get as much credit. But is it better to get, from Eubank Jr.'s perspective, would it be better for him to get the credit for taking on a prime GGG and lose? Or would it be better for him to fight a GGG maybe 12 months past his prime, 18 months past his prime and win? Assuming GGG is still at 160 pounds, or assuming he's still a world champion and he's unbeaten and all that. So, that's all debatable anyway, that whole scenario I just put to you. But the point I'm making is, we won't really know how good a job Eubank Sr. has done at guiding his son's career probably not until it's all said and done. Probably not until the end of his career, or at least well into his career. Because right now he's still kind of at the embryonic stages of his professional boxing career. We have to wait down the line and then we'll see. As I said, just to reiterate, I do have misgivings about the way Senior is guiding him. I do think that the Golovkin deal, or the pay-per-view deal that Senior was trying to go for, was a bit ambitious. Some of the things that he's apparently been saying in negotiations, for example, Eddie Hearn says that Eubank Sr. has told him on many occasions that Eubank Jr. is bigger than Anthony Joshua. And I've actually heard him say something similar to that on camera in an interview, which is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. That is delusional. But perhaps he thinks that he's going to will that situation into existence. Perhaps he thinks that by saying that Eubank Jr. is the biggest guy in world boxing publicly, and saying it to the promoters, and saying it, well, not in world boxing, but in British boxing at least at this point in time, at least bigger than Joshua, maybe he thinks that saying it often enough is going to make other people believe it. And if enough other people start believing it, then it's going to manifest itself in reality. Maybe that's where Eubank Sr. is coming from. Maybe it's not delusion. Maybe he's trying to impose his will on the boxing world by saying these kind of things, hoping to manifest his own thoughts or his own wishes. I don't know. Sorry if I got a little bit too abstract there, but like I say, people, we have to wait and see how Junior's career unfolds, and then we'll be able to say with certainty whether or not at least with a greater degree of certainty, whether or not his dad did actually ruin his career. So, me personally, I think it was too early for the Triple G fight. So the fact that it fell through, I don't think is a bad thing. Even if the Eubanks didn't intend for it to fall through, and some people believe they did, some people believe they didn't. Even if they didn't intend for it to fall through, I think that's a cloud with a silver lining. I think it wasn't the right time anyway. And Junior should be going the Danny Jacobs route at this point in his career. Going the Billy Joe Saunders route, they're dealing with Frank Warren again, and I think that's going to be a bit tough. Going the Danny Jacobs route, I think should be a lot easier for the Eubanks to negotiate and what have you. Although, well, easier from the Eubanks perspective, but definitely not easier from the perspective of Jacobs people. So we'll see what happens. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Hopefully I've given you some food for thought, which is what I always try to do in my videos. All right? It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.